The senator from Makueni County drove from Makueni this morning, a 2.5-hour journey. Maybe he went faster. He'll
at
tell
150
us
kilometers an hour.
Maybe he'll tell us if he was paying attention to the speed limits. He's here all the same, and he's here in one piece. Dan Maanzo is here with us this morning. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Yes, thank you. Yesterday, we had the sports.
Yes.
In Makueni, a place called Water.
Yes, in Water. Is the stadium finished?
No, unfortunately. The stadium, there were promises and promises for years. The stadium is not finished, and this week I must now make a request of a statement for the CS in charge of sports.
I thought you were going to say this week it will be finished.
They can't. The money is already stolen.
Yeah.
So we want to know who are the thieves, and we want to have a new allocation to complete the stadium.
So you, in your position as oversight, is going to be making a request of the CS to say where did the money for this stadium go, and when can we expect that the people of Makueni, specifically Wote, will have a stadium that's complete where they can operate?
Yes. It's been hanging out there for years. And the most unfortunate, because we have a lot of talented young people.
Yeah.
The football I saw yesterday
off the
was
charts.
Similar to one which was a Nyao Stadium.
Yes.
Therefore, we want our talents, to be recognized, and these young people to aspire to come to the, the national level, and international level.
We'll be looking out for that communique from you, and we'll ask you by Wednesday. If not, we'll ask you again.
Yes.
Well, another thing that we'll ask you to do today is interpret the proverb, which CT will share with you.
Yes.
He'll tell you which country we are in this week. You get, the top layer of the week's proverbs, and then you can interpret that for us.
Yes, we are in an archipelago in the Indian Ocean. Now, for those who may wonder, what on earth am I talking about? An archipelago is just an extensive group of islands.
Yeah.
The Comoros is actually not one specific place. It's a group of islands. And when you have a group of expansive or extensive islands, it's called an archipelago. That's the name. Lamu is also an archipelago, for those who do not know. Okay? Anyway.
Seychelles,
yes. They are one or two others, but it's not extensive. It's not as extensive as these ones.
Comoros.
Yes, because now we're talking about Siu, you're talking about Pate, and you
Kipungani.
go. Yes, exactly. So that is where now this comes in. The proverb: if you live by the river, you should make friends with the crocodile.
Live by the river?
If that's where you live,
yes.
Be friendly with the crocodile.
Especially if the river is rocky.
Yes, exactly.
Crocodiles hang out in rocky rivers.
They sun themselves there.
Yes.
Yes. So you need to have a public participation in the crocodiles from time to time. What do you think this means?
What do you think?
There's no likelihood that the crocodile will save you one day. No likelihood. It can only consume you.
It can usher you to the afterlife.
Yes. But if you make friends with it, when it consumes you, some parts of you will remain, and you may be saved.
Hey, okay.
It sounds like a hopeless situation.
Yeah. But if you make friends with the enemy, there's some level where they might consider you.
Yeah. If they attack your child, you may rescue the child. If you come fighting, and then you take the child to hospital and he leaves. A lot of times crocodiles don't spare anyone. In Makueni, we have a big river, Athi and Thwake, which have a crocodile. We also have that other Thwake Dam, which has never been completed.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm sure the day they do it, there will be a lot of crocodiles around the lake, which we are about to create. So what happens is, if a crocodile attacks a child, if they have gone to fetch water or an animal, if you make noise enough, you may save the animal or the child. It lets go of it. So to a certain extent, it is either scared or it's friendly. Yes.
That's the way to look at it. Speaking of crocodiles, and you can make the parallels, I'm going to leave that up to you.
Yes.
But we had an interesting number over the last couple of days, 4.4 billion shillings. That's the amount of shillings that members of parliament are now adding onto their salary. And that is going to come whether we like it or not. We know that members of parliament are legislators, and they've written it, essentially accepted it. It's coming into law. This comes off the back of austerity measures. This comes off the back of the fact that Kenya has a huge debt burden in the next coming years. I think every other year there is numbers in the hundreds of millions of shillings that Kenya has to pay in terms of debt, and these are first charges. It also comes off the back of a flailing economy, and it also comes off the back of very many things that are supposed to be done in this country that cannot be done for reason of lack of resources. And then we hear that members of parliament are going to increase their salaries to the tune of a collective 4.4 billion shillings.
Let me apply me to this and do.
Yeah.
We have the situation of doctors. 270,000 shillings that was supposed to be the stipend they're paid, reduced to 70,000.
Yeah.
And even that one has not actually been paid. We have clinical officers. We have nurses. Everything that we hear noise about has to do with money. We have university lecturers. Okay? Now, that noise keeps getting louder. How then do we have a situation where a budget-making parliament, and a parliament whose function among the others is to oversight, then proceed to, if this story is of course true, give themselves that sort of hike? How insensitive is parliament?
Well, very insensitive. But I'll tell you what I know about it. For a long time, for many, many years, the members of parliament who come around Nairobi have not been getting their mileage. Members of parliament do not have a government car. They don't have a GK car like like the judiciary or the
Ministers.
executive. So you buy your car from your loan. They give you a loan, you buy a car, then you fuel it. So what happens is for people who go very far, like the northern Kenya, Lamu, all these places, there is usually a monthly payment for mileage. So that you can be able to fix your car if you go and come back. I remember one time we went to northern Kenya, and when there are no roads, even brand new tires will be cut by stones. And you are finally without spares, and somebody has to go as far as Meru to get you a tire to be able to get out of that side. So where there are no roads, which again is also a government problem, because there should be roads everywhere.
To begin with, for crying out loud, but okay.
But with the communities in northern Kenya, the people move. So you have to drive to where they are. And it's a tough world out there. Although I believe around like Turkana, that's where we should be having the biggest towns and the biggest cities, and with a lot of tourists going on. There is a lot we can be done there, but unfortunately we haven't, and I believe in future we will. So what happens is the members of parliament around Nairobi and environs don't get that stipend. So for a long time they said we should also be paid something for the use of a car around, to visit the people and that sort of thing. And then that has been running for about 10 years. So recently I'm told SRC has agreed to pay something. I doubt whether I should amount that amount of money. I doubt whether it has been paid yet. Because as far as I know, up to today, even employees of parliament have not been paid, and members of parliament don't have their salaries. So I'll be surprised if that sort of money has been paid, because in my recollection, I don't have such in my account. But I know there was a push to make that a reality, so that you can equalize the members of parliament. If SRC, which is an independent body, which is supposed to regularize salaries of every government department, including parliament. So one, they cannot award themselves. It can only be awarded by SRC. And two, there is no opportunity to pass it on the floor of the House.
Senator.
Yes.
SRC didn't sit and say, oh, okay, let's give members of parliament an extra 366,011 shillings, because that's the amount that's going to show up on the payslip from this month, actually, from this next month, April. They didn't just sit down and say, let's go ahead and do that. There was lobbying, Senator. We can't run away from that.
No, from Parliamentary Service Commission, maybe.
But there was definitely lobbying. It was, yes. SRC has 100 items whereby people are asking for an increment here and there. But it seems as though members of parliament is where it came from. It is the same SRC who is going to oversee the reduction of monies that will be paid to doctors. It is the same SRC who is sitting and saying, actually, you know what, we cannot pay clinical officers more than this, because as a state operative, this is what they should or should not be doing. But the question is for a lot of Kenyans today, before we actually get to, you know, the sloganism and the sloganeering that we are seeing, it is from issues like this. That where do we see such rapid enforcement and implementation when it comes to people who don't even have a vehicle, for example, Senator, who then have to use their own blood, sweat and tears to treat Kenya's sick, to teach Kenya's children. And they've been asking, not even for increments, they've been asking for regularization. For years, there have been CBAs 2014 to 2019. There have been CBAs 2017 to 2022. There are CBAs currently from 2021 to 2025 that the government is not able to, because they say, well, their hands are tied. From an oversight point of view, Senator, how do you really see this?
Well, it's most unfortunate because the country has to be balanced. Just recently, we could not conduct proceedings because the medical fraternity was a constant visitor to Parliament, the UHC. In fact, I met one of the delegations, took their document and went and made a request for statement. And I'm expecting the new Minister for Health, Honorable Duale, to come and explain why they have not paid these employees for years. These people were hired during the COVID times. They have never been given permanent jobs, and I have made that request. You know, the country have to be balanced, and it would be unfortunate if a member of parliament has an increment. As I told you, the history I know of was that there needed to be a balance of the people in Nairobi and outside Nairobi. I don't know the history of the mileage claim, but it's tied to if you are to transport a member of parliament. And I want to say that one of the things we need to look at is moving government. Moving government is very, very expensive. If you check what has happened in the judiciary, parliament, and in the executive, they have bought these very new and very expensive vehicles, 4x4s. Let me not mention the brand because I may disadvantage some business people or advertising them. But when you look at the vehicles being replaced, they have not even 100,000 kilometers, and yet that vehicle is replaced. It is still very new. It is still very usable. It is still very good. I've seen a lot of this, and they must be costing billions of shillings. Unlike the country in West Africa, where the president uses a 1990 Range Rover, Land Rover, and they're investing in farming and stabilizing their country and, making the economy better. So here we are very wasteful. When the president moves around, totally unnecessarily in the country, all that money you are going to use to visit that region is enough to do all the roads. You see, like in some parts of eastern Kenya or even central Kenya and even northern Kenya, the farmers need the roads, either like in the case of Makueni, to take the mangoes to market, or even to this place we are processing. There's no road to such a place. And there are no feeder roads to that establishment. And then in central Kenya, it's milk. Nyandarua and all these places, you need to take the milk. But when the president visits, the money used just to transport government unnecessarily is enough to do all these roads. Right. So I think this matter needs to be looked into totality. And although I'm a member of parliament, I've said parliament isn't serving Kenyans in the first place. A bill leaves State House, the way it was drafted at the cabinet,
and comes to the House. There's a pretense of a public participation. It's just a wastage of public funds. Whatever ideas people give, they do not count. And you see, the most brilliant people are not in Parliament. There are many other people very knowledgeable in finance and in many other things. And all their input, including the Law Society of Kenya, which are a big stakeholder of law being made, their views are never considered, whether in regulations or in the law. And then the same bill goes back to State House the way it left. So Parliament has not done its role, and has not just made justice in making that particular law. And then trouble comes. Kenyans demonstrate. They overrun Parliament. They didn't care whose car it is. They stoned all the cars. Yeah.
They did a huge mess of the place. All those old telephones and some of the things Kenyans who would want to go to Parliament and see the history were destroyed. And then there's a huge expense to repair that. And first of all, they are the ones who provoked Kenyans, because Kenyans are saying, don't pass the finance bill. Hold on, let's discuss it. But they are passing it with impunity.
And this is the thing that takes us then to a conversation that we're hearing today. These things that you mention then form the basis of the slogan that is not going away: Ruto must go.
Yes.
It is because of things like this. It started with a finance bill that folks said, absolutely not. We are not going to be able to go this way anymore. Kenyans have swallowed this for the last few years. Come 2024, they said, not again. And this is where we saw Ruto must go started from, essentially, and has gained momentum. And from what you can see, it is not going anywhere. There's been castigation saying that, no, you shouldn't disrespect the presidency. You should not disrespect leadership. But many would also argue that it's coming from a place where people are saying, actually, you know what? We've been subjected to a situation that is not working. And so because of that, he must go.
And there's a big problem. Yesterday, before we left the stadium, the governor and I were held hostage by the youths. And they said, you can't leave. We said, why? They said they want to hear the Kasongo song. So we asked the DJ to play the song, and they were very happy to sing this song. Then they told Mutula, you can't leave. Why? You must say Ruto must go. and the youth chanted and chanted and chanted. And you can imagine, if the two of us were to agree with the CDF or the NSIS boss and told the youths you will not chant such things, there probably will not be alive right now. So the country has been pushed into a corner that is so hard by the leadership of this country, whereby the leadership assumes that Kenyans are in their support anymore. I believe Kenyans are no longer in support of Parliament, and you'll be surprised how many members of Parliament will be sent home in the next election. Kenyans are not happy with the president, even if he forces himself on Kenyans and visits by force regions pretending to be doing peace. If you want peace, you do justice, and there will be peace everywhere in the country. If you give justice to all those demonstrators demanding for their salaries, if you develop the region, if you use money, not for the office cannot be taking 3/4 of Kenya's budget, and there's no money to develop. For devolution.
Senator, the allocations to State House are not 3/4 of our budget. Even you know this. But anyway, go on.
What I'm trying to say is this: not only just that, but I'm saying generally, the running of government. From if you go to judiciary, which also is underfunded in a big way. If you come to Parliament, and if you go to the executive, if you're not utilizing the money, you can rebudget it for development. You know that happened during Kibaki's time. I am very sure State House never used more than 10,000 a day, a lot of times, because it was tea and ngwashi and nduma. I mean, that would not cost 10,000.
4 million shillings.
Yeah, running State House. in a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 10,000 would be a lot of money. So if you save all this money, you can apply it back to development, to making of the roads and things like that. But even more sad is a lot of money is wasted in corruption. Government projects which are shoddily done, but fully paid. Then also, we've got a lot of unpaid pending bills, from the counties to the national government. But there are those who are paid even before they complete the project they are doing. So I'm just saying that's the reasons now Kenyans are chanting, Ruto must go. And it started when Parliament went on capture. That's why the Kenyans decided to capture Parliament. And if it was not for the tall building, I will assure you over 100 members of Parliament would have lost their lives, where even we do not even have a IBC. I can assure you the police took off in a high speed and left the members of Parliament on their own. So it is a point we need to rethink. Whatever action, whatever lobbying is happening which disadvantages common Kenyan, I want to agree with you that it's not right. But just like many other promises in the country, I can assure you this money is because I've not seen it. It could be just another promise, which nothing has been done in.
Let me ask the question. Does Makueni have pending bills?
A lot of them. For the last 10 years.
How?
The monies allocated to the county were less and less. And there was something called verification, which delayed. And therefore, the monies are there. People who worked for the county, and they are yet waiting to be paid or to be verified and to make sure that the project actually did take place.
So explain verification, because if verification is the bottleneck for payment, what is it?
Well, like for example, I'll give you an example, although it's a matter in court.
We're not discussing the court case.
Not a court case, but
We're discussing this, yes.
Yes. I'm just saying what happens is, like if it's a road which was done, the contractor, the engineer, the road was done, but somehow, you don't want to pay for the road. And therefore, you ask for verification and even possibly prosecute the governor and prosecute the contractor and prosecute the engineer when you know very well the road is there. And even when you are in a court trial, you don't visit to go and see
if that road
is there, and you can go with the people who can verify that whatever had been requested has been done, because you must have those there must be a way you assess when a road is done. So that is there, and there are many other suppliers of government who have not been paid. That also runs to Machakos. I don't know the case of Kitui. I know the people who build the park and many other places.
Through the entire nation.
I don't think there is a county in this country
that doesn't have pending bills.
Yes.
All of them are pending bills. And it's the national government itself has a lot of pending bills.
Yes, but are there any counties in this country that have monies that they should have been given last year that they have not been given?
There has been delays.
No, but as of last year, 2024, there's a reason why I'm asking the question. If counties have pending bills, the government has not given them their allocation, then even if they wish to pay, they cannot pay. But if money has been given, the question I'm asking is, you may not be able to answer this question, but I'm asking it nonetheless. Can we correlate what has been given to counties vis-a-vis the work that has been done and the costing of it? And can we see where the balance is? Because you budget with money you have. You don't budget with money you don't have.
You had a low absorption. You had something recently that counties did not utilize the money they were given, and the money were in an account somewhere in central bank. But they are put such conditions by the national government that by the time you procure, by the time the job is done, the financial year is gone. And as soon as the financial year gets somewhere, all those monies are removed again and taken for the budgeting, yet people have already worked for them.
Okay.
And then it goes on and goes on
and goes on. I remember when the riots were taking place in northern Nigeria, and it was between Christians and Muslims, and you had to be able to chant either a verse from the Bible or one from the Quran, and then they would be able to tell what side you were on. And it's almost as though that's your passport to be able to get away now when we're saying Ruto must go. But then look at the headlines that we're hearing. There's, of course, the whole issue of whether the NIS has said that you need to be very careful about what you say. The CS for Interior, just the other day, in the person of CS Murkomen, said the people who are chanting these things have mental health issues. He didn't mince his words. He was very clear about what he said. How does this play against what Kenyans have a right to do? Also looking at it from a legal perspective, have a right to do in terms of how they feel frustrated with what is happening.
And indeed, Kenyans, a lot of Kenyans have mental issues because the government have pushed them to have mental issues. I'll call it unconstitutional involvement of security agencies in political matters. And I'll take you to, the sections of the law, the Constitution, where you can look at that. You see, in the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, Article 239(3) says that a national security organ shall not, in performing its functions, act in a partisan manner, further any interest of political party or cause, and then prejudice political interest or political cause that is legitimate under the Constitution. Therefore, when the military chief and the NSIS chief say, that slogan is illegal, they are first of all participated in politics. Mm-hmm. They have taken a partisan action.
Did they actually say that? I mean, you've heard it, we've seen clips. Did they actually say it is illegal?
It amounts into that.
No, it doesn't actually. What's the difference between warning, intimidating, and cautioning?
It could mean the same.
They could be synonymous.
Yes.
One has more nefarious intent than the other.
The other.
If you say intimidating, it means you have been warned and you've been told if you dare.
If you dare.
Okay?
Yes.
If you're cautioned at all, look, that is perhaps not the way you should go.
That's why I'm saying that is in breach of Article 239(3) of the two officers. They're in breach of that because it amounts.
Actually, they can't be because that's not what they said. I know this because I happened to be at that function.
Yes.
And I listened.
Yes.
We discussed it earlier on in the morning.
Yes.
And we're looking at what the standard, the intimidating, that was a headline in the Standard.
Yes.
That is not what they said. If you contextualize the entire conversation, no. That's the point. It didn't amount to that. The discussion was about the roles of the INS and the role of KDF. And they were explaining their roles. And the Ruto must go came in as an example. They said, look, for example, this chance that you must go. The general was explaining their constitutional role as the military and talking about the rights and freedoms that also come with the responsibilities. It's within that context. And he gave it and said, for instance, this thing that we say, the people who say it mean what they're saying, and that's what they want. But you must follow the constitutional way of getting what you want done. That is the context.
How does that play against what a constitutional provision or permission for freedom of speech then playing against that, Senator?
I will tell you, the person, how you contextualize this person speaking about it is with the recent events when this happened, the military was illegally on the streets.
Illegally?
Yes.
Their mandate as the armed forces does not allow them to maintain peace within the country?
Well, they can do that.
But there's a provision under which they are to be called into the street.
They have to be called. And, and in the context in which they were called to the streets, in fact, Kenyans were very happy to greet them at the streets and take selfies because there is no way the military is equipped to deal with a riot. If anything, if that happens, the military will be defeated by the people.
You see, what we're doing is explaining how we ought to have contextualized it. Were they in the streets illegally? Let's start there. Because if they were, then the actions would be legal.
The role of the military is to defend the territory of Kenya.
Yeah.
Outside and inside.
Yes. That's the first role. But the key role is to make sure there is no invasion. In the event there is invasion from inside, it is in a very different context. It's not in a context of just people shouting, Ruto must go. It is in a context of if they are armed civilians. If now that you have like a
Please
private
point
army.
out the context in the Constitution that states what you just told me, so that I can understand it better.
You see. I want to give you. Let me give it by examples. We have abducted chiefs here, 5 of them, in northern Kenya. They are abducted by people from outside the country. They come in, they invade our privacy, our sovereignty. I have not seen any action done by the military about that. And if the military are very serious about this with the technology they have, up to now, these chiefs will be back home through whatever means. The same thing happens in around River Omo in northern Kenya, Lake Turkana. Kenyans are invaded. The only person I see there is police and Murkomen. I don't see the army to prevent further invasion of the same. Where I see the army is talking about, and you can look at the facial expression and what it led to. The NSIS chief talked about cohesion. If a country has to be cohesive, then give justice to the country.
And how does justice look like, Senator?
Justice looks like this. For example, I'll tell you some of the impeachments you have seen in the country. They are not true impeachments. For impeachment of Songo, it was a fraudulent impeachment because some of the people who voted at the assembly never voted, and therefore that doesn't cohese the country. You have the impeachment of Gachagua, where members of parliament are being paid by the executive to remove Gachagua. So does that bring cohesion in the country? We have abductions. And I'll tell you, the key suspects of abductions in this country are not the police. I was involved in those court cases. I represented some of the people who were released, like Bob Jaggi. They have stories to tell, and they have told them in the media. The key suspects in the abductions, it is the same CDF chief and the same NSIS chief. If you are to prosecute anybody in the international court,
and are these allegations, Senator, or these are things that
I'm saying the key suspects.
For there to be
from the information given by the abductees. At some points, they were in military confinement. Who is the boss of the military? What were civilians doing in a military confinement? So, if we were to get serious as a country, and I know some organizations are following this, and I know enough Kenyans have made reports to The Hague, then eventually, if anybody will be prosecuted, will be those two.
So is that what you draw on, a parallel now, whereby Kenyans, in every opportunity that they get, are shouting and sloganeering, Ruto must go? And if we see that what could be contextualized as the warning that come from these 2 individuals about how you should remove somebody if you want to. You shouldn't sloganeer, you shouldn't chant, but you should go the constitutional way. They
are very mistaken. Election takes place every 5 years. There is no other way of removing a person who is elected other than through constitutional means. And one of the constitutional means is an impeachment, which can happen in parliament.
So there's nothing wrong with the sloganeer?
There's nothing wrong because it is part of the process heading up in an election, which is a constitutional method. What the security chiefs are talking about, in case there were armed Kenyans in the country, and that cannot happen, Kenyans would like to go to an election.
I've asked you to provide evidence for where it states in our constitution that any time the security forces, the military specifically, is involved within the country in the civilian life, it must be when they are there's an armed insurrection within the country.
There's no other.
It has to come from Parliament, and I think that's
first
clear.
of all, it has to come to
It
Parliament.
has to come to Parliament.
Yes.
Parliament then has to give the go-ahead
and
for
Parliament has to debate
in an internal any kind of internal insurrection. I think that's constitutional. That Parliament, the National Assembly, must sit. That is then now what activates for the forces to come into the
and there's no internal
internally.
insurrection in Kenya.
Did
There's
Parliament
no such.
sit?
No, they didn't. And I think that's what gives rise to this now being an illegal.
In every situation that we speak of, an insurrection is an emergency.
Yes.
There are no emergency provisions within our constitution that allows for the military to be deployed.
You know, an insurrection means if they are armed Kenyans, armed with guns and
Insurrection
making a real threat to normalcy.
You see, the point
to
I'm
peace.
making, Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
is this. It is very easy when one's mind has been made up about the role of government and any agency attached to the government, so that anything that is said is interpreted in the most negative way possible. Because there are many things which are done wrong in this country. There are many, many, many things.
Yes.
The protest by the young people in this country was peaceful.
Peaceful. That's true.
They were not breaking any law. They were not doing anything. In fact, the presence of the military portrayed this better than anything else you could think of.
Yes.
Nobody was running helter-skelter. People were taking selfies. Some were boarding
People
the
are
military.
very happy when the military came on board.
They were boarding the military vehicles.
And even said, welcome, now you'll protect us.
Yes.
Are
We saw all that. So when you see all this, what does it tell you? Were the military threatening the public? Was their presence in any way intimidating the public? That public was not intimidated.
Sure. Or
And then they went back to the barracks, did they not?
They went, and everybody was happy.
Yes.
about it.
So when one talks
So
about...
as I'm saying,
Yes.
the military was misused in that case. The military should have been elsewhere taking care of our borders.
And that takes me to now the next issue, which we should be asking about, for example. Are we paying a lot of attention to sloganeering, which is coming from Kenyans who are frustrated to a point and want to be able to expel this in one way or another, as opposed to focusing on things that actually need the attention? There are police officers that are dying in Haiti who are trying to sort out issues. There are still issues of banditry within the country that should be taken care of. There are abductions that are happening in the country. There are still Kenyans who are missing. For golly's sake, there's a man who's been missing for the last 2 months now and 14 days. 2 months and 14 days. We seem to not be able to find him. He went into Lake Nakuru to fish. We don't know where he is. We don't know if he's dead or alive. His wife and his 2 children are crying day in, day out. They don't know when he's going to come back. But we seem to be able to take that attention and focus it on people who are shouting Ruto must go. But there are Kenyans who are dying.
But you expect the family, they came to Parliament, you expect the family of that missing young man, the fisherman, to shout Ruto must go. They have tried their level best to be assisted by government. They have been frustrated. When matters go to court, the court, you know, in that particular case, ruled against the people. The court would have gone further to push or force. You know, the court said there was no sufficient evidence.
Sadly, yeah.
You know,
so I mean, where
there was overwhelming evidence.
An inquest has been ordered for the. I think now we're into day 10 or day 11 to see what then can be found out after that. But is that enough? And I think the overarching question here, Senator, is that aren't there things for which attention, from an internal and external security point of view, should be paid attention to, as opposed to what we're hearing today, whereby Kenyans are being told that they have mental issues and that's why they're shouting Ruto must go, or you find you're dead, or you find you're missing, or you make sure that people cannot be disappeared or abducted because they open their mouth.
And I want to go back to the same point and take these 2 gentlemen seriously, in that they're very keen to protect the presidency, but not to protect the people. And the presidency is created by the people. It is that's why they said you are the one you elected. And if you elect and you want to use constitutional means, first of all, for you to put enough pressure to Parliament to impeach a president, that must come from every constituency, so that when an impeachment motion is brought to the House, the members know how to vote. So one of the methods is impeachment, and that's the oversight of Parliament. The other one is the president can resign. If he hears too much of that noise from Kenyans who are elected, a honorable president will simply resign and let other people handle the nation. And therefore, the security chiefs cannot threaten Kenyans on that particular issue. And I want to take it further. Remember, when Kenyans went to social media against the campaign of Raila Odinga, a minister affiliated to Raila Odinga threatened Kenyans and said, "We'll come for you." And sure enough, quite a number of people who are on that social space have gone missing. And when people go missing in this country, who do you ask? Is the same security chiefs. The police have come to court and said, "Sorry, we do not have anyone in our cells because that's the only place. But we are investigating whoever could be responsible for this."
Our cells, the only place where Kenyans who are abducted or who are disappeared go to.
No. Unfortunately, the evidence I have and what I've heard from the released abductees, they were. You remember there has been a missing MCA of Wajir.
Yes, for 6 months, and then he appeared from.
Yes, and he hasn't talked to tell us where he was. Certainly, he was not in a police cell. And the likes of Bob Jaggi and that team, wherever they were confined, they were beaten up thoroughly every day. That is unconstitutional. It is extrajudicial, and the same security chiefs are not telling us about it. So you must balance, and that's why the security chiefs have told you under Article 239, they cannot participate in politics. They cannot seem to be leaning on one side of politics, nor can they disadvantage another side.
Mheshimiwa,
yes,
the president is the head of state. He is also head of government. Okay? The president represents the entire nation. Now, in protecting the nation, how do you go about it? Who do you protect? What do you do? If your role is to protect the country, how do you manifest the protection of the country?
Well, you do not manifest this protection of the country by abducting. If somebody has wronged any law in Kenya,
take them to court.
Take them to court, give evidence. I'll give an example, like Muturi's son. He was abducted. Instead of getting whatever mistake he did, or even the MCA, whatever mistake he did, he should have been taken to court. Evidence should have been adduced, and would have faced the law.
There is no way anybody can justify abductions. There is no way you can justify judicial killings. It doesn't matter what you say and how you say. They are wrong. There's no question about it.
And it is out of those wrongs. First of all, you cannot cohese the country, because if you have killed my son, or my son is missing, like the case of Nakuru, how do you want that Kenyan to be happy with the president and to be happy with the government?
You provide justice.
It is, you provide justice. And it is the duty of the president to make sure every single Kenyan is safe, every single Kenyan is not abducted, and every single Kenyan faces justice whenever they wrong. If they murder somebody, let them be prosecuted for murder.
It is true. But this conversation takes us away from a critical role that is played by the house you belong to. Oversight. Everyone I hear blames the president, blames who people are bribed, they elected this. Who asked them to accept the money in the first place? Because in accepting the money, they themselves were abrogating the rights of the Constitution. They were actually breaking the law because they were now subverting justice. Because that's what it was.
I want to admit that one of the biggest failures is Parliament. But the only way to deal with the Parliament is during the election. Just is the only other way to deal with the president
is during the election.
Is during the election. And that's why when these people are preparing...
You need to pause. You can't say that. It's going to contradict what you said earlier. The only way to defeat the president is wait for an election. That's what those two chiefs of security were talking about. You're now agreeing with them.
No, I'm saying there are many other options.
Yes.
But one of the best ways, because our constitution is there and elections are conducted every 5 years, and we have a date of the election. Unless the president and the deputy president are not there, then now you will have a presidential election. But the other way, and what Kenyans are doing by saying Ruto must go, it is a campaign for the next election that they don't want.
What do people mean when they say Ruto must go, in your opinion?
They mean in the next election, don't elect him again. That's what they say.
Why don't they want him? What are they fed up of?
They are fed up of a number of things. And I told you, the expensive way of running government.
It's called conspicuous consumption.
Very expensive to run government instead of government cutting. And you see Kenyans are being taxed and they can see their money is being misused openly. The same money is being used to buy crowds. Like when he's going to tour around in central Kenya, a lot of money is being demanded by hosty members of parliament so that they can go and buy youths to have a friendly crowd. And we are saying that is misuse of funds. If I were the president, I will not tour yet. I will develop fast. I'll make sure all the roads are done.
Who is it who looks and investigates the Auditor General's reports? Is it not Parliament?
It is Parliament.
And these things where monies have not been utilized appropriately comes to
Parliament.
How many people has Parliament censured and pointed and said, you govern your house, how?
The Constitution allows to recall members of Parliament. Unfortunately, we do not have IBC. And therefore, Kenyans who have wished to recall members of Parliament have not exercised that right.
So once again, we want to blame the executive, don't we?
Well, for IBC to be set up, the executive has a big role.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it has delayed. But we are saying we have a constitution which, whether you are a military chief or you are an SIS chief or you are a member of parliament or you are a common Kenyan in the streets, must honor.
I must honor this.
We must obey the constitution, all of us, if we want cohesion and we want a country which is together. And
very quickly, Senator, do you think that the calls for Ruto must go and the way in which they seem to be building up steam and momentum should actually continue, if that's what Kenyans feel?
Well, Kenyans are just expressing themselves. And it means during the next election, then they will exercise that. But I want to urge young people shouting, Ruto must go. If you have no ID card and now they are free, you are wasting your time. Please get an identity card. And when IBC is set up, please register as a voter. And when you go to vote in 2027, say there, Ruto must go with your vote.
Indeed. The Senator from Makueni County has been our guest this hour and dropping some gems this hour, that's for sure, in terms of what needs to happen in a proper governance. We want to thank you so much for being here. Are you driving back to Makueni this morning?
Yes, I love to go back and work. And I need to be with the Muslims. We have a lot of Muslims along Mombasa Road in Water. I need to celebrate, and I want to wish them, all Muslims in Kenya, all Muslims in the world, and their friends, happy holiday and celebrations.
Indeed. Asante sana for being here this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.